Welcome to Uncanny X-Minutes, where we bring you the comics behind the movies. I'm Sasha.
I'm producer James.
And we're here to talk about the first 10 minutes of Wolverine, X-Men Origins Wolverine.
X-Men Origins, Wolverine.
There it is. James, what actually happens in the first 10 minutes of this movie?
I'm glad you asked. Young Wolverine kills his real dad and discovers a young Sabretooth is his brother, half-brother. There's a war montage, and Team X heads out on a mission.
I don't think they call them Team X. Do they call them
I think they do call them Team X.
Okay, I didn't know if I remembered hearing that part, so that's on me. But yes.
Well, they might not have called them in this 10 minutes. I don't remember, because now I watch it
blurred
all over
a
the
little.
place. So
yeah.
I'm not as hard on those 10 minutes as we probably should be, but I believe, yes, they're called Team X in this at some point. So, yes, this is X-Men Origins, Wolverine, which is an odd title, but they were planning on doing more of them.
Yeah, it was supposed to be X-Men Origins, different character.
The next one they had in the pipeline was Magneto.
Okay.
They kind of took a lot of that and put it in First Class. There
yes.
is a full script for the Magneto one.
Really?
Yes, but a lot of the scenes that are interesting are in First Class.
I would love to read
It's
that
him
script.
Nazi hunting.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
I would love...
have it.
You have
I'll
it?
send it to you.
Please do. I actually really want to read that. Well, I mean, I know that it's not canon in terms of like the 616 comic universe, because now I have to say 616 comic universe because...
No. In this podcast, 616 is the comics universe.
I know. It makes me so angry. Anyway.
It is the 19999.
Yes.
I think that's a month.
4
nines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just I think that would have been really interesting. I'm kind of curious but like you said, a lot of it ended up in First Class. Like there was a lot of Magneto.
Well, I guess this universe is not the 19999. That's the MCU.
That's technically the MCU, but yeah. I have a confession to make.
Yeah.
I have a confession to make about the first 10 minutes of this movie.
Uh-huh.
This movie is typically hated, reviled even.
It is definitely one where they that's a stinker.
Yeah, people really didn't like it. The first 10 minutes, pretty good, fine, at least. Can we agree?
I will say this, because I watched the full movie. I do my preliminary, what we should maybe talk about, and I kind of do it a second time before we cover it. Mm-hmm. When you look at it in 10-minute chunks, and you're not sitting there analyzing the movie as a full thing, parts of it aren't bad. Yeah. Parts of it are kind of fun. I think part of it is this movie got leaked.
Yes.
Just put it right out there. When it got released, somebody leaked a previs copy of it, which means the special effects were not finished. And I think that made them rush parts of it, because some of the special effects still don't look finished. There's one in particular later I'll bring up just because it's fun. But there are some segments that are this is a little rough. This doesn't look as polished as the other 3 X-Men movies. Even X-Men 3 looks pretty polished. The effects look good. They know what they're doing. This one, I think they went too digital with some of it, and it shows. I don't care about any of that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of me that will like a movie more than hate a movie.
Yeah.
Because if it's entertaining, it's entertaining. Mm-hmm. That's just how I am. For the purposes of this show, there's a lot of good stuff in here. They did the research. Yeah. More so, I think, than in 3. But maybe I'll be wrong by the time we get to the end of this.
Yeah.
Because then the last one where I'm that's not Kid Omega. Are you
wild.
insane? You're an insane person.
I will say, I think that is... I turned to Brian. He watches these with me. I don't know why he commits to it. I suppose that's marriage for you. But I said, I turned to him and I was I actually think these first 10 minutes are pretty good. And he was that's just because they're doing X-Men stuff.
Yeah.
And that was just the way he looked at me. He's just that's just why you like it. But it's true.
Yeah.
This is very accurate to the comic that we're going to spend most of today talking about, which is Origin.
Yeah.
Singular.
Up to the war sequence.
Yeah.
The cold open of this movie is Origin.
I would say a lot of it with the shooting and
or at
stuff.
Least the first couple issues.
There's a character swap that we're going to talk about here.
Yeah.
But what actually happens, the scene, the shooting, the killing of Logan, that's all in Origin too.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So there are 2, I do want to say this at the top. If you do go to read these comics, there is 2 different series.
Yeah.
There is Origin, no S, just Origin.
Yeah.
It is Wolverine's backstory way back. All of it is in the past.
Yeah.
Then there's Wolverine Origins.
Yes.
which is like a more ongoing. So the other one was like a limited series. This one is an ongoing series, and it takes place after House of M.
Yeah.
When everything goes back to normal, Wolverine has his memories back.
Yeah.
So Origin happened in the comics. Wolverine doesn't know about Origin.
Yeah. The conclusion of Origin is the journal that Rose writes about all the memories being destroyed. So Logan doesn't have a way to access. We're going to have to not use Logan. We're going to have to call him Wolverine. Because there's multiple Logans you'll hear shortly.
A lot of my notes that I make, I try to not use anyone's like quote unquote real name. I try to use everyone's code names. Because I feel like it's easier to not get confused.
But there's like 4 Wolverines now. So let's like.
Well, in the movies, there's only one Wolverine.
Sure. So yes, we're talking
But you're
about,
not wrong.
Yeah. Wolverine specifically. But like he like gets his memory back after House of M, and so he remembers everything. That's just how you get access to it. But Origin was around for what I want to say 4.
It was right
5
before
years?
this movie came out.
Yeah, but very early 2000s. It obviously is what they took to make Wolverine Origins.
Yeah,
the movie.
Yeah, no. So the comic came out in 2001 to 2002.
Yeah,
and then this movie was 2009.
That makes sense.
So they were like, it's been out long enough. We can use this. So the first scene, a young Wolverine sick in bed with like another boy hanging out with him in what seems to be a manor.
Yeah.
All straight from the comic book.
Yeah.
The only huge, I will go more into what happens in Origin, but I just want to start with the huge difference being the boy that's hanging out with him that we find out is his half-brother is Sabretooth in the movie. That is not what happens in the comics.
Yes. In the comics, it's a different boy. It's Dog Logan.
It's still the like groundskeeper's son.
Yes.
The relationship's still the same. The character is different.
Yeah.
So, yes, it is Dog Logan is the kid's name.
Yeah.
It's a nickname. Dog is the kid. I don't think we ever actually learn his real name, do we?
I don't know his real name. I always just call him Dog.
Everyone calls him Dog. His dad calls him Dog is the problem.
Yeah, that's part of it.
And so nobody else knows his name.
But in the movie, who they put in here is Sabretooth. And I actually think this is fine. Like,
yeah, I agree with you.
Totally fine. I think there are people who have read the comics who have confused Dog for Sabretooth.
I thought Dog was Sabretooth.
That's right. It was. Yeah, we've talked about this.
I was confused at first because Dog does show up in Wolverine and the X-Men. And at first I thought it's supposed to be Sabretooth. But yeah. So I completely understand that mix up, and I think it's fine. Like, this is one of those things in the movies where it's like, I don't know. I'm sure there's people out there that are like huge Dog Logan lovers. I doubt it, because when you look up how much he's been in, we're gonna run through his whole run.
Yeah.
There's not much, basically.
Yeah.
I want to start with Origin, because the first couple issues of Origin are basically covered in this.
Yeah.
When this was made, you knew it was going to be a Wolverine story. But we are in the Howlett estate with a sick young boy who's kind of a dandy, I would say. He's got like some sort of weird fever, like
he
allergies
gets
or
sick
something.
A lot.
He gets sick a lot.
Yeah.
So they bring in Rose, who is a young girl who's been orphaned, to come like read to him and teach him and be his friend.
Yeah.
The groundskeeper is
Thomas Logan.
Yes. The groundskeeper is Thomas Logan. And his son, Dog, looks like Wolverine. So when you read this the very first time,
yeah,
you're supposed to be misled.
Yes, you're supposed to think that is Wolverine.
Because Thomas Logan looks like an older Wolverine.
His last name is Logan.
And his last name's Logan.
Yeah.
Up to this point in the comics, Logan was just a name. It wasn't a first name. It wasn't a last name. It was just Cher.
Yeah.
It was
Logan.
Logan.
Cher. So, you're right, though. You're right.
Like, you're not supposed to know if it was his first or last name. It's just, was it just on his dog tags? Like, in the movies?
It was on the dog tag.
It's just on his dog tag.
Yeah.
So they're setting you up for failure in that comic series. Dog is a psychopath.
Yeah.
He is, because he has been beaten by his father, and so he takes it out on everyone else. And
it definitely is a nurture situation, because like he was normal at the beginning, and they have a like delicate friendship, I would argue.
Yeah.
And then because the groundskeeper, Thomas Logan, doesn't get along with the sick child in bed dad, who is John Howlett.
John Howlett.
You realize that these kids are not friends anymore because their fathers have basically, the situation between their fathers has made it impossible.
It's interesting because, like, John Howlett's dad had left him the estate, but John Howlett seems to be nicer to the hired help.
100%.
But his father's like, you can't do that. And then you have Thomas Logan, who is a hired help, who's bitter at all the people up in the house.
Right.
Even though we find out later he had an affair with the mother.
Yes.
So Thomas Logan had an affair with Elizabeth Howlett.
Right.
And that's where James Howlett comes from.
Yes.
And it's funny because now James Howlett is a more recognized name for Logan.
Yeah, it is.
So it's like less of a thing. Like, that used to be some trivia. Like, oh, what's Wolverine's real name? Logan. No, it's not. It's James Howlett.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm a little naughty boy. So basically the like a bunch of shenanigans happen. I don't need to go too far into it, but basically the end of the like second issue is what happens in this movie. Thomas gets drunk, he comes in, he shoots John.
Yeah.
Elizabeth is nearby. James Howlett gets, I almost called him Logan, but that makes it way more confusing. James Howlett gets upset, yells, bone claws pop out, which you then go, wait, what?
Yeah.
Stabs Thomas Logan, his actual father, not his supposed father.
Right.
And that's where he finds out that it's his dad.
Right. And this is also at the same time where you find out that his mom, Elizabeth Howlett, she's not grateful for this saving. She cradles Thomas Logan's body after he dies, and she says to James Howlett, not again. So I don't want to go too into details, but there is, theoretically, there is hinted at an older brother of Wolverine.
Okay.
John Howlett Jr., presumably.
Yeah.
Who is gone, who is no longer with us.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying what the comic is, because the comic is unclear.
Yeah.
But it is definitely implied here, and then in the other half of the limited series where they meet the grandfather.
Yeah.
That either he passed away or they like put him to death even.
Yeah.
Is the implication. There's something there. For James Howlett, his dad just died. He murders the guy. He realizes his dad isn't his dad. This horrible jerk of a guy is his actual dad. And his mom hates him because he's a mutant. Like, he learns that in like 10 seconds.
Well,
and
yeah, now it's like, you're a monster.
You're a monster.
Yeah.
And this is the first like kind of retcon, kind of not retcon, whatever, of like why Wolverine he loses his memories because like blocks his mental blocks.
Yeah, for the next couple issues, he's like in shock.
Yeah.
And Rose is basically taking care of him, and they give him the name Logan.
Yeah.
So
Rose
they're on the run.
Yeah. That's the other
Grandfather
difference.
gave them money and goes, run.
And also, like, I've dealt with this before, get out of here.
Yeah.
It's not super kind, I would argue.
No.
Yeah. So, like, I also want to point out, Rose is completely cut from the movie.
Oh, yeah, no. Well, it's unnecessary.
I agree.
In this movie.
I agree.
Because she's a point of contention between the two boys.
Right.
So, like, she's important if you're reading Origin. If you just want to say they're brothers, you don't need her.
You don't need her, yeah.
So the movie just cuts her out, just does the climactic scene from issue 2, and then nothing else from the rest of the book.
Right.
And honestly, I wouldn't even go too far into the book. If you want to read the book, it is interesting because it does show how Wolverine becomes like a little bit of who he is.
Yeah, because it's post loss of memories, kind of, yeah.
And Dog does show up at the end of that to fight him.
Yeah.
Like, he does hunt him down, essentially. And then we don't see Dog for a long time.
Yeah, a really long time.
The next time he shows up is in an issue of Astonishing Spider-Man Wolverine. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, I think that's what it's called.
Astonishing Spider-Man and Wolverine in 2010. So 9 years after his original appearance. That story is weird. It is. Did you read that one?
No, I didn't read this one.
Okay. So this one, I'm just a quick pitch about it.
Mm-hmm.
Wolverine and Spider-Man are stopping a bank robbery with diamonds and end up jumping through time.
Are you going to explain that, or am I supposed to just like ride with it? Which I can ride with it.
The problem is that the story starts with them being like, oh, now you're with cavemen. And it like time has passed.
I see.
Where Spider-Man's trying to get them back home, and Wolverine just starts hanging out with cavemen.
Wolverine and Spider-Man are really an iconic duo that don't get enough love, in my personal opinion.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah. Wolverine hates him, and it's so much fun.
It's great because you love Spider-Man. Everybody loves Spider-Man except for Wolverine.
It is a very similar to the Wolverine Deadpool, like, butting heads a little bit.
Yeah, I prefer Spider-Man to Deadpool, but that's just a personal preference.
Sure. Well, I think there's just difference in their personalities, but the vibe is very similar.
I think actually, now that you say that, it's basically identical to Deadpool and Cable.
Yeah.
Actually,
yes,
it's the same vibe of like, I'm tired of you already.
So you find out later, spoilers for Astonishing Spider-Man and Wolverine, another limited series, that Mojo's behind it and has been filming the whole thing. So they escape the cavemen, and then they're in another thing, and then they're in another thing, and they're in another thing. So Dog Logan, because when I got introduced to him before, I think it was with Origin, but then I didn't think anything about it. Okay. And then I read Wolverine and the X-Men, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
And he shows up again. So I assumed he was a mutant like his brother and just survived this whole time. No, that's not the case. Wolverine ends up in like Dog's present and confronts him. And then they go to a diamond mine where these diamonds are. And that's how, like, so Dog had nothing to do with this whole thing. He just happens to be part of the plot.
Okay.
And then Dog ends up being able to time travel with diamonds.
Got it. Okay.
Does that make Wolverine and X-Men make a little more sense?
Yes, it does, actually. I just didn't, like, the thing is, sometimes when I read Wolverine stuff, because I'm not a big Wolverine person.
Yeah.
Especially, like, Wolverine and the X-Men was, like, the one thing I really loved about with Wolverine. And so, like, I just accepted
but it's an X-Men book. It's not a Wolverine book.
Exactly. And I also just accepted there's going to be stuff about Wolverine here that I don't know about. Yeah. That I just honestly got to let go. And that Dog was definitely one of them. I have read Origin.
Because it's 6 issues and it's interesting.
Right. And it is really interesting. And I've also read Origins with the plural.
I haven't read them all, but I've definitely...
I have not read them all.
I've jumped around on that one. Yeah.
I think because Origins, which is very easily confused... That's not what we're talking about.
It's easy. Origin is in the past. Origins is happening in like the current.
Right. It introduces Daken, who I do like.
Yes.
So that's
which maybe we'll get into him later.
Much later.
All that to say, Dog is now jumping through time.
Right.
And then we go to Wolverine and the X-Men, where he actually shows up again.
Yeah. And Wolverine and the X-Men, that's when he shows up and they're in the Savage Lands. So this makes sense that he's a time traveler too, right? Like to just hop around and kind of do things there and like, I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, so Wolverine has taken the like undesirables.
Yes, the kids
of this school.
It's like their last chance to make something of themselves before they're like, I don't know. What was that?
Do you think that's true? Because, like, Wolverine starts by going, like, all right, you all, last chance, you need to get to the rendezvous point. I'm not going to tell you where it is. But you all have to get there or you all fail.
I think it was true.
Yeah.
We've talked a little bit about this, but there's another run that happens after Wolverine and the X-Men finish with Jubilee running a group of kids who are almost... identical to this group of kids.
Yeah.
Because there's Glob Herman and there's Kid Omega, et cetera, et cetera. And basically she's like, hey, you guys are the kids who didn't make it.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to be X-Men, basically. You need to figure out something else to do with your life and we're going to give you different training. And it's basically the same group of kids he takes to the Savage Land.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize that because I kind of didn't read that in order exactly. I kind of came back to that run later. And so, like, I'm like, actually, did they just kind of not actually make it and hack it out of the school? You know, obviously things change when we get to Krakoa and everything. Right. The paradigm shifts. But, like...
Well, we've talked about Glob Herman being in the Hellfire Academy during this run, and this is where he goes to there.
Right. Yeah.
He leaves with Sauron.
Because he's mad because of, like, because, like, the school, they feel like the school... is not supporting them. Like these are the kids that are troubled, like, right? And they always just give them to Logan, which I'm like, this is not actually I don't think this is the right move.
We told the story about these kids were stealing stuff, give them to Gambit. What?
So funny.
What?
I love that. Where he's just like, I'm gonna teach you how to thieve and not get caught, dummies. Like, it's iconic.
So I guess the school's not the best at relegating students to the correct teachers.
Honestly, it is pretty impressive because that was Kitty Pryde who did that when she was running the school, when she sent those kids to Gambit. Yeah. And I'm like, you should actually know better.
Should
100% should know better.
I mean, I love it.
Me too.
It was a good story. It was a fun story.
It was a great story.
But
I mean, this is kind of the same thing with Logan. I mean, in all fairness, he's the headmaster at this point in time. So, like, he's like, okay, well, it's my responsibility to take on the troubled kids.
It's the only way I know how to do it.
Right. Like, so I kind of see it. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, maybe you needed to step back and think how effective you've been at dealing with, like, bratty teenagers. And it's like the ones that are really, with the exception of Kid Omega, which is a huge star in his lapel, I will say, but it hasn't happened yet at this point in the story.
Right. He's working on it.
He's working with kids who are honestly pretty good. Like Kitty Pryde, Jubilee. Yeah. These are like good kids, right? Like they end up becoming teachers at the school. Like they're very motivated, smart. It's just a different subset. Armor also. We always forget about Armor.
Armor's great.
Like, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Armor would have been fine without him.
Right.
Like,
all of them would have been. I mean, he was a mentor to them, but let's be real.
But not in the way of, like, they would have been trouble. Like, Kid Omega needed to be knocked in the right direction.
Really badly, yeah.
He would easily could have gotten on the wrong path.
Yeah.
The others would have been fine.
Yeah.
If somebody else was their mentor, they would have been fine.
Yeah.
Anyway, Dog shows up in the Savage Land to basically show he's the better Logan. Mm-hmm. Is the way that he words a lot of stuff.
He has like this really creepy like shrine thing to Wolverine about like all of his newspaper clippings from like the school and stuff of Wolverine running it. And you're like, and he's eating Wolverine at his cabin.
Like eating the animal of a Wolverine.
Sorry, I should have clarified that.
Yes.
He's just weird. And then like he's got his future version of himself was like, okay, time to go hunt Wolverine because like
yes, that is the other thing. Because of the time travel shenanigans, there are multiple dogs that are hanging out in one location.
That is, I literally forgot that happened. I read this run and I forgot it because I was like, I don't understand that. That's fine.
If it never, I'll be honest, I'll read comics and if they don't come back, I forget they happened.
Yeah.
Because like Dog shows up with cavemen, robots from the future, and gangsters, like 1920s gangsters with guns, to let loose in the Savage Land, and then he was going to teach the kids how to survive well, like to do better.
Yeah, he almost comes off as a good guy. I remember this almost a heavy almost.
I mean, he hands them all guns.
Yeah, it's true.
And iBoy thrives with them, which I love.
iBoy has since we've started this podcast.
Hey, wait, have we ever talked about iBoy on this?
No, maybe very briefly.
He's a guy that's covered in eyes.
But his powers have grown. His character has grown. I have like fallen in love with him over the course of this podcast. He's amazing. He's quickly. I gave I think a top 5 X-Men list really at the beginning, and he wasn't on there. I'm going to tell you right now, he is on there now.
He is on
really there. Risen up in estimation.
But because he has all those eyes, he's able to shoot. He's like a sharpshooter. He didn't and he didn't even realize it. That's the funny part. But this whole section is what made me realize what I like about comic books. So you take a character like Dog. Look at where he came from. Yeah. Origin is no shenanigans.
None.
It is drama that happens to have a mutant in it.
Yeah.
Cut to his next appearance is basically him with cavemen, robots, and gangsters in a prehistoric land that's in Antarctica. Those 2 sentences are one, like, that is how you describe this guy. High drama, shenanigans. Like, that's what I love about Marvel Comics.
I do feel like those are common threads for all of true Wolverine villains because you can't help but getting caught up in Wolverine's drama if you're in his proximity, but also you're memorable if you're goofy.
Yeah. He couldn't just be the hunter.
There's a lot of really boring, just straight men villains in Wolverine's story.
I mean,
you don't want to be
he
one
would
of
just
them.
be Craven at that point. Let's be honest.
Don't let my husband hear you talking bad about Craven. He is one of his favorite comic book characters.
But I'm saying the position has been filled.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point. Yes, the position has been filled.
We don't need another one. So Dog needed to have time-traveling diamonds.
And then he teaches obviously, this storyline Wolverine saves the kids, but half of them go like Herman.
I think Glob's the only one who goes at this moment.
Right,
'Cause
later
then
the rest
that's when we follow Kid Omega
and
going
Edie,
over.
and they
Yes,
go over
exactly.
to the Hellfire Academy. But in the meantime, though, like he's teacher there. Dog becomes a teacher at the Hellfire Academy, so they bring him back.
You mean Coach Logan?
Coach Logan. They bring him back to kind of play an antagonist to Logan, but I don't think they really use him much at the end of this run, and then things
I think
get
it's
really
just he
mixed up.
happens to be there sort of thing.
Yeah.
But then we haven't really seen him since.
Yeah.
So he's still out there, sort of, but we haven't seen him since 2012 or 13.
Yeah,
since
when
he's
when
actually
Wolverine the
been
X-Men
here.
run. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there you go. 2013 was the last appearance of him. So it's been over 10 years.
I mean, Krakoa, you're going to end up not seeing him in
No,
that era.
no.
They're kind of dealing with totally different stakes.
But giving him time diamonds, he can show up again.
Oh, for sure. I think
Yeah.
that's really fun. I like that concept. I think that we can use him. I guess I'm not surprised the fact that they like swapped him out for Sabretooth though. Because,
and for the movie. Yes, absolutely.
Well, just because also I understand why people think this is Sabretooth. Because like if you read Origin and you read that backstory, you're like, this is a person who, like, think about it. That's Dog. I mean, Dog didn't have a great relationship with his dad. In the movie, they talk about like, hey, you killed him and he deserved it. But like when you really think about the relationship between Sabretooth and Wolverine, where it's like every year on his birthday he's hunted down, there's like a jealousy aspect. They're like very similar.
Mhm.
Like I understand why they replaced it with Sabretooth, and like why maybe his storyline is what people would have expected for Dog. And I'm kind of glad that Dog sometimes chases Wolverine down, but also sometimes is just like Coach Logan at the evil school. Because like
That's literally the only two things
here's
he's
the
done.
thing, the position is full. Sabretooth exists.
Yeah.
You know, like we don't need another one.
Out of curiosity, I put into Google, is Sabretooth Wolverine's, and left it blank just to
Yeah.
see what it would suggest. The other, so it's brother, half brother, older brother. There is also dad. Because I think there were some like inklings that Sabretooth might be his father.
Oh, at the
before
beginning.
Origin came out.
Yeah.
So there was some like weird, like maybe they are, but then it was confirmed obviously that they weren't.
I mean, in
but-
Origins, S plural, which I haven't reread recently, but
yeah,
I've
I need
read-
to read more of that.
There was a weird thing with Romulus and
Mm-hmm.
all of the like Sabretooth and Wolverine and all of like the kind
And
of
Team X.
animal
Yeah.
people. There was like a thing where like maybe they were descended from wolves or something. It got weird. No,
maybe we'll get into it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know. So like I could see some weird shaky stuff happening in Origins, which by the way that nobody like, with the exception of Daken.
No, he kept going for sure.
Nobody else. Origins is kind of like plural origins. Nobody cares about that. It's not really,
Origin is solidified.
Yeah,
he is
singular.
now James Howlett.
That's the
no
story.
problem.
Yeah.
But you're not wrong. I think a lot of stuff got dropped from Origins, but that's also based on. I don't think I've read the whole run. I've read a good chunk
There's
of it.
50 issues in that run.
Yeah, that's not bad.
It's a lot.
I mean,
It's a lot.
I've seen worse. But that is chunky. You're not
Yes.
wrong, especially
Yeah.
nowadays where a lot of things go more like 24 issues or something.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think Sabretooth in the dog position is the way. That is how you do adaptation right.
Yeah.
Don't muddy up the waters. The only problem becomes this is our first sort of retcon where Wolverine, like Sabretooth doesn't say anything in the first movie about knowing Wolverine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And doesn't even look the same because it's not even though it's a different actor. They style him differently.
Yeah.
He doesn't look like comic book Sabretooth in this movie.
Mm.
In the first one he does. In this one he just looks like Liev Schreiber.
Yeah. I
Which I
kind
don't-
of like it. I
don't
actually
hate
kind of
it.
prefer it.
But when you've already introduced him,
It is weird.
that is the problem.
Yeah, because like why
We're only
is he look
4
different?
movies in.
Yeah.
This
We're
is-
already having problems now.
It's almost like they didn't want to put him in all the long hair.
I could see that. It was a lot of work.
Yeah.
Sabretooth has had short hair, I think.
I feel like
Briefly.
there's always like the mutton chops are always real
big
wild
thing. Yeah.
and thick.
Because it
no
almost looks
matter
like
what.
a mane.
Because it's the same Wolverine.
Yeah.
Wolverine's cut his hair too, but he always has the mutton chops and the
Yeah.
dark hair.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's ways you could have done it, but I think I mean, we'll get into it as we go more into Sabretooth stuff, but I do think this is more accurately close to what Sabretooth should be,
Yeah.
as opposed to the X-Men 1. Sabretooth.
I just feel like X-Men 1 Sabretooth is kind of bland.
He's a henchman.
He's henchman.
And Sabretooth, comic book Sabretooth, is not a henchman.
No.
Which is, I think, the problem that a lot of X-Men movies can have, is that they want to bring in big characters, but the big characters are all their own thing, not side characters.
The problem with the big characters, or even just honestly, even the henchmen, is like what makes them good in X-Men comics is that there's just so much X-Men comics that like there's history behind every character. They've got their own life. They've got their own motivations. Even Toad, we've had a whole episode on Toad. Could have had more than one on Toad. And like he's a literal henchman, and so like sometimes they do get flattened in the movies because they don't have time. Like this is it's like a 2-hour movie. Let's go. You got to keep burning through this. Like no time to.
So
focus.
we don't have time for Dog.
We don't. So we did Sabretooth, and we kind of changed him a little bit. I like what they did.
I think it gives a good introduction to a movie audience about Wolverine's origin.
Yeah.
Without having to muddy it up. Like they still could tell this story with Sabretooth and just put him in it. And then their relationship is a lot more tenuous because they're half brothers.
Yeah, and they put Sabretooth in Team X, which is the group of people right at the end of the 10 minutes that are going on a mission for the government. And I think that's awesome because like that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like to why this history between these two people.
Which, I mean, we'll get into it, but Sabretooth is on Team X.
Sorry, but I guess the
but I'm saying, like, it
representing
works.
Dog being on Team X, it makes sense, even though like in the comic and origin, like we never see Dog again.
Right.
Really.
You need it. They were going to use Team X and they wanted to do origin, and that's a good through line.
Yeah, exactly. It's way better.
It's clean.
Like, for that.
It's clean. It's not confusing. The only confusion now is everyone probably thinks Sabretooth is Wolverine's brother in the comic books.
Yeah.
And he's not.
He's not.
It's Dog Logan. I love that we brought this up the other day in front of our friends. We started talking about Dog Logan, and everyone's like, what are you talking about?
They literally thought we were talking about like a Pet Avenger, like Logan, Wolverine. And we're like, no,
like
his brother, his half brother. Duh.
It's not Frog Thor. It's not Dog Logan. It's just Dog Logan.
All that to say, if sometimes it's hard to follow us on this podcast as we try to break this down to you. Don't worry. People who are nearest and dearest to our hearts also don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah. Sometimes purposefully I will do it. To try and make it sound as confusing as possible.
And then you get to explain it to them, and then we trick them to talking about X-Men.
It's also true. All right. I think we've talked enough Dog by now.
All right. Sounds good. I'm your host, Tasha.
I'm producer James.
And we'll see you for the next 10.